welcome back to the channel. I'm Lizz, Neurodivergent Parenting Coach and the founder of the Neurodivergent Parenting Revolution on Facebook, a free community that you're most welcome to join. If you're new here, welcome. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about autistic meltdowns and how we can help perhaps ourselves if we're getting them, and also our kids. And I'm hoping that this will be an interesting and informative video that you can then share with friends, family, maybe even some teachers, so that they can get it, they can understand a bit more, and we can make this world a more inclusive, accessible place. So let's get into the video. I'm over being scared, let them talk and let them stare, go tell them that my time is now. Something I've learned over the years as an undiagnosed ADHD and possibly autistic too, is that my meltdowns look very different to how my sons do, for example. And that could be because he's male and I'm female, or it could be that I grew up without knowing who I was and he grew up with a mum who has embraced everything about him and has allowed him to freely express his emotions. And in that, we have taught him how to help himself and deal with them and move forward from them. Let's talk about something that many of us struggle to explain, and as somebody who was undiagnosed growing up, I had no idea was something that was going on with me. Autistic meltdown. This video isn't about shaming anybody, there's no judgment here to be had. This is to help explain what happens in a meltdown and what might help. I want people to understand that a meltdown is not dramatic, it's not bad behaviour or kids kicking off for no reason. There are genuine reasons, emotional, physical, physiological actions that are happening in our bodies and our kiddos' bodies that are causing overload, overwhelm, and that often ends in an autistic meltdown. So first up, what is autism really? I don't particularly adhere to the word disorder. I don't think it's necessarily the correct terminology, but I'm open to learning. However, what I do believe it is and understand it to be is a different way of our brain functioning. Our brains are wired to function in a slightly different way, and let's be real, sometimes a very different way to the neurotypical setting. This means that when we are getting any kind of sensory information, it can feel ramped up 1,000 times. So for instance, if you say, "Oh, can you smell that?" Somebody might say, "No, I have no idea what you're on about." Whereas somebody who is autistic will quite often be able to go, "Oh my God, yeah, what is that? That's disgusting. I can smell that too." And if you don't have somebody who can smell it as well, it can make you feel like you're going slightly mad. A great example of this is me and my son. For instance, my other half cannot pick up on all these different smells, and our neighbours are starting to have barbecues and stuff, and so my son and I, quite often can smell it within the first ignition, and he gets so overwhelmed with it that he needs his bedroom window shut. So I will shout up to him, "Oh, did you smell it? Somebody's having a barbecue." And he'll be like, "Already smelled it, I'm just shutting my window." Yeah, my other half will be like, "Can't smell it." And sometimes it's really hard to deal with because it can make you feel like you're making stuff up. An autistic meltdown isn't overreacting or being oversensitive. It is about having a nervous system that is hyperactive, hyperreactive to sensory input. I think the important thing to remember with this sensory input is that it is there to keep us safe. It is a long-term part of being a human being that we have these alarms going off in our body to remind us to be safe, to keep safe, to move. It goes back to the very old school, we used to have saber-toothed tigers and we used to have to keep ourselves safe from a saber-toothed tiger. We don't have that in the world today. However, our bodies are still reacting in a very similar way. So what does an autistic meltdown feel like? So I think I do have meltdowns to some extent. I certainly get completely overwhelmed and overstimulated to the point that my brain just goes, and I can't function to think on one thing, and I have to have quiet time. But what I've learned over the years from my son and from listening to the autistic community is a few things about how a meltdown feels. They can feel like the lights are blinding, they're too bright, they're hurting you, they're giving a headache, there's too much noise going on. And it's not a case of, oh, we've got like this music on this loud. It's we've got music on, we've got people talking, I can hear the wind chimes outside, I can hear the cars passing by, I can hear the electricity buzzing, and it gets too much. So once your body goes into high alert, it's really hard to bring it down. But there are ways that we can do that. So once our body goes into high alert, it just becomes overwhelming and quite often can end up in a full shutdown or lashing out or just complete freeze mode. Everybody reacts differently within a meltdown because everybody's different. So it's important that we are detectives as parents to see what has led up to the meltdown, how our children react to it, or if we're talking about ourselves, what's led up to us getting to meltdown stage, and how can we help ourselves next time. So what does an autistic meltdown look like? It can look like blank stares, zoning out. It can be a loss of words, like they just can't find the words to express themselves. We can be rocking, we can be flapping, we can be twisting and fiddling and nudging. This is stimming, and it's a way that we try to self-regulate. Repeating of phrases or sounds known as echolalia or echophrasia. Now, I've only recently learned that this can actually be inside your head as well. And the reason that interested me was because that's how mine happens. I was diagnosed with OCD when I was younger and was always believed that chatting in my head that I was doing over and over again, repeating words, was OCD, but it might actually be echolalia. They can lash out, they can get really aggressive, and I don't like using that word aggressive, but it's because they don't know how to handle themselves when they're so overstimulated, and that's where we as parents can come in and help them to regulate. The hard side of that is when they end up hurting themselves, and we have to find ways to get these emotions and sensory stimuli under control in ways that are not harmful to the child or to ourselves. And whilst when they're young, it can be really hard to deal with. Once we get teenage hormones, a lot of things change and things become bigger and more encompassing. I think we all remember being a teenager and the big feelings we had. So imagine adding that to complete and utter sensory overwhelm. So we have to remember that every autistic person is different, and that overwhelm that they are experiencing is real. It's not something that we or they can just snap out of. If we could, we would. What not to do during a meltdown. This is something that, again, I've learned over the years with my son, and I'm learning for myself now as well. The first one seems pretty obvious. However, in the moment, you do want to say it. Calm down. Just calm down. Calm down, you're fine. You can't just calm down, because if they could just calm down, they would. The other one is don't make demands. Don't tell them to, go this way, go that way. It's not going to go in the way that you think it is. It will actually just escalate the situation. And another really important one is don't touch them unless they are okay with it, unless they ask you to, which quite frankly, they probably won't during a meltdown. I think obviously there's a caveat to that, which is if they are going to cause themselves grievous bodily harm, then you need to step in. There's common sense here, right? But the majority of the time, for instance, if the child is in a room safe, in a lounge or in the school classroom or something, don't touch them. Give them space. Allow them that space. Just be there to watch and help navigate what is happening. And remember that they're not being difficult. We're not being difficult. We're just drowning in the bright lights, the noises, the sounds, the asks. It's all got too much. So what might help instead? Sometimes you can ask people if they would like to move to sit down on the floor or a beanbag or the sofa. They might be happy to be guided towards something that is safer. Perhaps you can offer them a drink. And when I say offer them a drink, it's not a case of, oh, hi, would you like a cup of tea? I would suggest that you just bring them a bottle of water. And if they want it, they'll take it. If they don't, they don't. Give them their fidget toys, give them their blankie, give them something that is of comfort to them that brings them that comfort when they aren't in meltdown. And actually having that could well help them regulate. For some reason, a lot of people find this really difficult to do, especially if they're neurotypical, that they think it's odd to want to fidget and stim with these things. I mean, I think we've all done this plenty of times before, haven't we? You have to just hold that space for them. And again, keeping them safe. As long as they are safe, allow them to fidget, allow them to spin, allow them to rock. It's almost as if you have to get it out of your system to then enable you to come back round to self-regulation. When it's possible, perhaps introduce one of their favourite hyper-focus things. It might be that you can see that they are beginning to relax. It's changing how they're reacting. So perhaps you can offer them a toy or offer them a book. But this is something that you have to learn from your children what they need. And if you're sending this video to a teacher or professional, listen to the parents. They have spent hours watching and learning. So listen to their recommendations because they know what works. So what can actually work after a meltdown? How can you help? And the answer to this is actually after the meltdown, when the child or you have managed to become regulated again. Because when somebody is in meltdown, they don't have the capacity for complex questions about what could help you next time. They don't need those questions, and they certainly aren't going to be able to answer them. After a meltdown, and I'm talking not immediately after, I'm saying a couple of hours after, later in the evening, it's time to ask the questions then that are easy, and be curious. Think about ways to ask these questions that they will respond to, and that's going to be different for different ages as well. Be really gentle with how you bring it up. Would it be okay if we talked about earlier? Do you know what happened? Do you have any idea what triggered that today? Was it because you'd had a really busy day? Was it because something got too loud and it just pushed you over the edge? Did I do something that triggered this? How can I help? Something that I found really helpful to ask was, can I give you something next time you're in a meltdown? So this goes back to what I was saying about being given a bottle of water. Sometimes people being given a bottle of water or a special fidget can help them regulate quicker, if you like. So discuss that with them when they are calm, so that you can help next time it happens. And I think it's really important that you listen, because they are the ones going through it. They're the ones that know what they need, and give them time to formulate the thoughts and the answers. Sometimes this can look like awkward pauses of silence, but what is actually happening is your child or adult is really thinking about what that could be and is forming a way to say it in a way that you understand. So just give them time. So the big truth of the matter is that being autistic doesn't mean you're broken. It means that you operate on a different operating system. I've always liked the analogy to use with neurotypical people, particularly of computer systems. For example, Apple versus Windows. Some people really like Apple, other people really like Windows. They have very different operating systems, but they both achieve the same things. One is not better than the other. People can argue over it all they want, but there are just different ways of operating, and being neurodivergent, being autistic, being AuDHD and the like is just a different way of operating in this world. It's up to us, especially as parents, to help create that world where our kids can just be themselves and are given the space and emotional support to move through the world as themselves without having to mask. And then the more that you are able to achieve this, the less meltdowns you will actually see, and the less meltdowns you'll actually have yourself if it's you that's having the meltdowns. Because the more we honour our truths, the more we honour ourselves, we can move through life at a much more relaxed and together, for want of a better word, way. So with a bit of compassion, a bit of kindness, a bit of love, and a lot of curiosity, we can help each other. We can build better relationship, and we can help our kids to feel safe, seen, and be heard. And that's the kind of world that I want to live in. So if this has helped you make sense of meltdowns for yourself, for your kids, for somebody else's kids, for the kids at school, for you as an adult, please let me know down in the comments below. And please do share it on with somebody who needs to hear it, or you would like them to hear it. It all comes with love. We're here to better ourselves. Until next time, be kind to yourself. You're not too much. You're definitely not broken. And you're the revolution you've been waiting for. See you next time. Bye.